Welcome to this best of edition of Issues and Ideas with Chris DeBello.
There's an image associated with courthouses and courtrooms. You've seen it. It's a figure of a blindfolded woman holding a balanced scale, representing a judicial system that's blind to bias and fair in process. Certainly a valid, important foundation, but it doesn't always apply. Example, every year in New Jersey, there are 115,000 evictions filed. Huge majority of those who receive those notices wind up in court without legal representation, while the landlord has their attorney, with both having vast experience with this process. Our first guest today is here to share how a program in limited use already in New Jersey, it's already proven to have multiple benefits, not just for the person facing eviction, can and should be expanded. She's managing attorney of the Housing Justice Project at Seton Hall Law School's Center for Social Justice, Ann Kassalow. Thanks for being here today, Ann.
Thank you for having me today.
A couple of websites. We do have them on the homepage, too, for Seton Hall University at shu.edu, and for the law school, law.shu.edu. And again, they're over on the homepage as well. So paint the picture for us, Ann. When a tenant who receives an eviction notice goes into court, what are they contending with and what are they absent of?
Yeah, thank you for, the framing of this discussion. I am an attorney that's been representing tenants facing eviction for about 10 years now. And now I manage the Housing Justice Project at Seton Hall Law School. So I continue to represent tenants, and we also are sort of looking at this issue from a wider angle. And, there's a catchphrase out there that housing is a human right, which it absolutely should be. But it's not a recognized right by the government. For example, when someone is facing the loss of their liberty, when they're facing incarceration for criminal charges, they're provided an attorney to represent them through the public defender's office so that, their rights could be protected through that process. When somebody is facing eviction, they're not provided an attorney by the government. So as you mentioned, 96% of tenants are going to eviction cases on their own without the benefit of an attorney. I'll tell you a little bit about what the eviction court process looks like and what these tenants are facing. When a landlord files an eviction complaint for any reason, there is 3 weeks until a trial date can be scheduled. So a tenant receives the court paperwork, and then they have to go to court within 3 weeks and possibly face the loss of their home. As you mentioned, most landlords are represented in this process, and there are 115,000 eviction cases filed every year in New Jersey. So the courts, frankly, are overwhelmed with the number of cases, and they have to process them as quickly as possible. So when a landlord goes in with an attorney, they get what they want, and the tenant is there without an attorney. The tenant doesn't know what their rights are, what their protections are, and the court doesn't have time to properly process these cases. New Jersey has a lot of good laws that protect tenants, but the laws are not being properly enforced in the way that landlord-tenant court is operating in New Jersey.
And how common is it for a tenant, only because they know they're up against it, how common is it that they just don't show in court and they lose by default?
That's a great question. It's frequent. People don't, have the ability to take off work to go to court. They just presume they're going to lose. Sometimes people default in court because they actually never got notice of their trial date. Service is not, it doesn't require in-person service to serve somebody about their eviction court date. So sometimes people miss the court notice. So the default rate is quite high for people who just don't even show up, for tenants who don't even show up to court.
I bet a lot of people, too, think that, and attorneys do pro bono work, but it's very limited only because they have a job, a career responsibility to the respective firms that they work for. But how does that larger than reality belief add to the problem of representation for tenants in courts? Do they think that they're going to be able to find a pro bono attorney and find out that the pickings are a lot slimmer than they thought it was going to be?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot slimmer than you would think. Tenants can get free attorneys through civil legal services offices. So Legal Services of New Jersey, there's regional legal services programs. There's a lot of independent nonprofits that do represent tenants in eviction court. But overall, including all the free legal services attorneys, pro bono private attorneys, and paid attorneys representing tenants, still overall less than 4% of tenants have an attorney in court. And so there's just not, the needs are not met at all.
Talking with Ann Kassalow, who is managing attorney at the Housing Justice Project at Seton Hall Law School's Center for Social Justice. That's shu.edu for Seton Hall, and for the law school, it's law.shu.edu, and you are listening to Issues and Ideas. A report has been issued, the estimated fiscal impact of an eviction right to counsel. And the impact is not just on the cost of a program, which we'll get into in a moment, but for the scales to be balanced in eviction cases, the benefits are a lot more widespread than people think. It can impact everything from a person maintaining their job to their child getting the education they need, to having the various financial aspects to stability in their lives, to the fiscal impact for the landlord, the community, for the taxes. I mean, the benefits far outweigh the $86 million yearly cost that implementing this program would require.
Yeah, and this is something that is so exciting to me. As someone who's done this work for a long time, the human suffering cost of eviction is quite high. But it's exciting to see that an investment in preventing eviction is actually a wise financial investment from the state. So as you mentioned, when somebody is evicted, there's a lot of fallout from that. They may need temporary housing, shelter placement, hotels. That is a cost, a social safety net cost to the state. Someone might lose their job, which hurts our economy, and then they might rely on welfare, food stamps. They might lose their health insurance and relied on Medicaid. They may be a family where children need out-of-home placement and foster care. There's just so many expenses that come with a family being evicted that it is a wise investment to prevent evictions. And preventing evictions, attorneys are a piece of that. And I want to acknowledge that attorneys are not the sole answer for preventing evictions. There's a lot of ways to prevent evictions even before court cases get filed. We need rental assistance. We need caseworkers to help people. But at the end of the day, lawyers are a very effective way to prevent eviction if a tenant gets to court and is facing that eviction process in court.
So in a perfect world, how would this program be implemented? I mentioned in the report states, too, that there are a few communities in New Jersey that have this idea as part of their process. Is this something the state would have to mandate? Would it be left up to counties or individual communities? Should the state be the one to oversee and orchestrate what this program would be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do want to acknowledge that, there's a few municipalities in New Jersey that have passed a right to counsel for tenants facing eviction. It includes Jersey City, which is in the process of implementing their program, the city of Newark, and the state has already funded pilot programs in a few municipalities, including East Orange, Atlantic City, and Trenton. And all of these have shown to be productive, effective means of preventing eviction. And, but at the end of the day, they don't have the resources to fully represent every tenant in their town. So I think that the reason that it needs to come from the state is that the state really can provide the funding. The state can provide the funding, and then implementation looks like providing money to organizations across the state that can implement the project and develop the attorneys and the programs that would represent all the tenants. So that's why it needs to come from the state and not the municipalities, is really just a resources issue.
You think for the state, too, just to wrap up here, the state to invest in something that would reap benefits financially as well as structurally for lives and communities, because empty houses, they call that blights, and that doesn't do much for property values either. And what the estimated fiscal impact of an eviction right to counsel prepared by the ACLU of New Jersey and the Seton Hall Law School Center for Social Justice demonstrates how much of a widespread benefit and, surprisingly, how much of a widespread support this idea has. And you can learn more about it. We have a link directly to the report at our homepage. And to learn more about the Seton Hall University is shu.edu. And as far as their School of Law, that website is law.shu.edu. And Ann Kassalow, I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention, because we see a problem and we think, well, it's just a really too big of a problem for anything to be done about it. But what you show was there's a foundation already existing to be built upon and expanded, so that whether it's self-induced, through mistakes, through some point in between, an eviction comes about, there can be a mutually beneficial solution for both the landlord and the tenant. Thanks for the work that you do. Thanks for being here today.
Absolutely, and thank you for this discussion. It's something I feel passionately about, and I'm excited for the direction that our state is headed.
Mention the nation of Israel, and you'll hear a variety of reactions. While many will show love and proper respect for the nation, others reveal their hatred through their antisemitism. It's the foundation which people build their beliefs on, and how clear their vision is when they study something, which determines the conclusion that they're going to arrive at. My next guest is here to present the work that's being done within a project whose goal is to present the facts and reality of the strength, value, and importance of Israel. It's work that the organization he's a part of is looking to communities of all sizes to join and to share in it. Here to explain all of what's going to be accomplished with Israel Appreciation Day, which is set for February 11th of next year, is a member of the organizing committee, Steve Rosenberg. Thanks for being here today, Steve.
Chris, thank you. Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and I loved your intro. That's you encapsulated it perfectly. Really, really perfectly. Great job.
IsraelAppreciationDay.com is the website to learn more, and we do have the link at our homepage as well. So let's start with the basics, and we'll get into the involvement. What is the mission, the goal of Israel Appreciation Day, and how are you going to go about achieving it?
So this is our second time doing this work, and its goal is exactly what you said. Like, Israel is America's greatest ally, and Israel is the heartbeat of the Middle East. It keeps things moving. It keeps things flowing. As you know, because you're a smart journalist, Israel, aka Startup Nation, has given the world incredible advancements in medicine, in technology, in financial technology, in agriculture. Yet the world doesn't really understand the truth, because you have platforms like on social media, which I refer to as anti-social media. You have the mainstream media. You have colleges, universities, you have K through 12, which are talking about this intersectionality and oppressor versus oppressed nations. And, if you and I got off of a plane right now in Israel, we'd walk around and we would see people of all races, creeds, and colors, including Arabs who serve in the military, who serve in government, who play on sports teams. These are Arabs, not Jews. Right? There are Christians over there. There are Muslims over there. There are people of all kinds over there. But this is not the story that gets told. All you hear about is this great genocide. And by the way, this is a genocide that has allowed more Arabs to be born and to live. So with Israel Appreciation Day, we are trying to make sure that this is a way that people begin to really understand and learn the facts. This is not a Jewish thing. This is a fight for Judeo-Christian values. This is a way that we must tell the truth about what's going on, really.
And it sounds certainly like it's more about understanding the people of Israel and not the politics, because certainly, as we've seen, in recent days. And like with any politics, it brings about debate and disagreement, but that distracts away from the people who make up a nation. And it's the people who have the ultimate say in what happens to their nation, not the politics.
Exactly right. I mean, good, smart people can disagree about politics. At least you used to be able to, right? Listen, I was not a fan of Joe Biden, but I wasn't willing to tear down the country. And likewise, you may not like Benjamin Netanyahu, but you have to be very appreciative of the way that he is completely, and his military have completely reconstructed the Middle East, eliminating incredible threats, again, not just to Israel, but to the West in Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis in Yemen. So you don't have to I don't care if you like Bibi Netanyahu. It doesn't matter to me. You have to like the state of Israel. Just like if you don't like Donald Trump, that's fine. We're not going to dislike the United States. So this is about the people, the incredible fortitude and resilience that the people of Israel have, and what they have overcome. I mean, think about it. They have the worst possible piece of land that you could have.
Yeah.
It is tiny. It is in the middle of the desert. Yet you could go into a restaurant in Israel and order a glass of water. And you know what you get? A glass of water. It is a remarkable place, an absolutely remarkable place. I read yesterday that they are getting close to almost 100% of lymphoma patients in recovery from some of their technology. Again, those are stories that do not get told. And the lies and the nonsense that gets told in the media and on college campuses, and again, in K through 12, is really a disgrace. It's really a disgrace.
Or Steve Rosenberg, who is one of the committee members for the organizing of Israel Appreciation Day, taking place February 11th of 2026. A little more at IsraelAppreciationDay.com, and you're listening to Issues and Ideas. We have all seen the series of reports compiled by the Anti-Defamation League about anti-Semitism. Latest report, a record high 9,354 anti-Semitic incidents here in America. It's a 5% increase in the previous year. Certainly a similar, if not even greater growth on college campuses. How much does the growth of anti-Semitism here in America and around the world, quite frankly, play a role in how Israel is seen?
Yeah, it's anti-Zionism is probably the number one driver today. I think, when I talk about fighting anti-Semitism, I sort of laugh, and not in a funny way, but fighting anti-Semitism is like fighting stupidity or obesity, right? We're never going to win that fight. So we have to make sure that people actually understand the truth. And we know that there are people that don't want to know the truth. They just want to continue to hate Israel, and in that case, hate Jewish people and people, good Christian Zionists, and people that actually understand right versus wrong. These same people that have been screaming about Israel as an oppressor, they're very quiet when it comes to what's been happening in Nigeria or Sudan or other parts of the world where there are actual genocides going on. So this anti-Israel bias, this anti-Zionism is crazy. The Jewish people are allowed to have one tiny little homeland. This piece of Israel, where there are 16 million people, 9 million people living, they're surrounded by 400 million Muslims. 400 million. So to have one little tiny piece of land seems to me to be a reasonable compromise to have. And when you think about what the Israelis have accomplished and what they have given the world, I would think that the world would be quite pleased and thankful for the Israelis.
Well, it's certainly a nation and a people that we can all learn a lot from for survival, if nothing else, never mind achievement and accomplishment. So with Israel Appreciation Day, I mentioned back in the introduction that this is something, it's great to have the global broadcast, the stellar names, the top musical and comedic performers, but what can the communities of all faiths and all sizes do to be a part of this?
So you go to IsraelAppreciationDay.com. Like you said, you can buy a ticket. If you happen to be in Las Vegas, you could be there live and in person. But this is a virtual program, and as you said, there'll be musical performances, panel discussions, speeches from incredible people like Ambassador Huckabee, from Congressman Richie Torres, from Kaya Jones, from John Ondrasik, from Sal Litvak, who's a comedian, from so many big names, and they're all listed right on the website. And we're hoping to have hundreds of thousands of people tune in. And it will be not just a one moment in time. It will then launch a series of other projects that will come out of this, because we must go on the offensive. We must continue to tell the truth. We must continue to work with good, smart people like you who understand the truth and want to talk about the truth. And if the truth comes out, then I think we can actually really solve some problems here. But, it takes a village, as they say. But we have to start talking about what's real. And when you go on IsraelAppreciationDay.com, you get a real sense of what we're trying to do.
And it's also important, too, and you obviously understand that. We always have these designated days to honor and fill in the blank. Okay, the day's over, people move on. The key is to keep people focused, maybe not dedicated, but at least understanding, and keep a constant awareness of a specific cause. In this case, the right of Israel to exist, and that is so mind-boggling that we have to say to a democracy needs a right to exist in this world. That should be an automatic, but as Steve explains, the geography certainly makes that challenging, and that's an understatement to say the least. So if this is something that you need to be a part of, you feel the need to be a part of, go to IsraelAppreciationDay.com.
Exactly.
Find out the information, the facts, how to be involved, how to be at the actual event, and learn from there, but through all the avenues that the organization is going to present to you, your community, your synagogue, your church, your group, whatever the case may be a part of an answer and a solution that Israel is much deserving of. IsraelAppreciationDay.com is the website, the event February 11th of 2026. Steve Rosenberg, thanks for the awareness and the involvement you're raising and inspiring with your work in this event. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
Deport them all. That's what some people say is the only response to illegal immigration. All right, if that's what you believe, then where do we get the money from to cover the cost of finding, apprehending, and deporting, latest estimate, around 13 million people? These same people are the ones who throw blanket statements out at undocumented immigrants, claiming that they're mostly violent criminals who are getting every government program benefit that exists. The reality, quite a bit different. Vast majority of undocumented immigrants came here for a better life. They were hardworking. They love America. The next guest is a member of the U.S. House of Representatives who has stepped forward with a realistic and very responsible solution to the illegal immigration issue. She presents ideas in two ways, actually. In the House, she introduced the Dignity Act of 2025, H.R. 4393, if you want to look it up. And she expands on her immigration solution and insight in her new book, Dignity, Not Citizenship, The Truth About Immigration No One Is Telling You. She is a Republican representative for Florida's 27th District, Representative Maria Elvira Salazar. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure to you. How are you doing?
Well, I'm pleased to bring your information, your ideas to as many people as possible, because it seems like, and you write about this in your book too, it's a historic headbutting that's been going on with immigration. What has been just a brief, what have been the common threads with the timeline? Why has so little been getting done as the problem continues to have grown since the Reagan administration?
Well, the problem here is that since the Reagan administration, we've had a problem with not having the border secured. And by not having the border secured, then you had all these people who were gaming the system and who were claiming a political asylum. And in reality, many of them did not qualify. And then now we are in this situation where you have millions of undocumented people who do not have a criminal record, They are needed in construction, hospitality, agricultural, dairy farms. And then what are we going to do with them? Which is my eternal question. What are we going to do with those people who have been here for more than 5 years, who have families, American children, people who are part of our society and do not have a criminal record and do not belong to any gang organizations. It's impossible to deport them all. So let's do what's Solomonic. Let's give them dignity, no citizenship, make them pay for their crimes, and let them stay in the country helping the economy.
We've seen that when Donald Trump returned to the Oval Office, obviously, as it was in his first term, immigration was a big issue, and the promise was to deport the worst of the worst. And I think we all can agree with that. That might be an actual bipartisan issue right there.
Yep.
It has been working out that way, at least by the visual. I don't know about...
No, it has not, and that's the big problem, that we're taking everybody. We're taking the bad hombres, and we're taking the good hombres. We're taking the people who are here helping the economy. And that's why we have the labor shortage that we have at this hour. That's why we have the problems that we're having at this hour when it comes to the economy, having the roofers and the manufacturers and the farmers not having enough workers to do the job. That's all I'm saying. Let them stay. Let them pay for their crime. Let them no federal programs, no right to vote, no right to any type of federal programs, but then at the same time, let them stay because they have friends.
Let's think about that for a second, because, again, like I said back in the introduction, a lot of people who are critical of illegal immigration saying that, again, the total misinformation that they're getting federal programs, these are people who are paying into the Medicare, the Medicaid system, the Social Security system. They're not getting any of those benefits. If you take them out of the situation, what's that going to do to the financial stability of those programs, which are already shaky to begin with?
Look, some are and some are not. We're talking about millions and millions of people.
Sure.
Oh, that's some of them, of course. Yeah, I'm sure it's some of them. But I would say not the overwhelming majority of the illegals are in the federal system. They're not. Most of them are not. I'm sure some are, but it's not the big bulk. The big bulk is in construction, hospitality, and agricultural, and giving their labor every day in jobs that other Americans are not willing to do. So, get them off the rolls of the federal programs. No problem. We'll still need them. That's the problem. We still need them.
So let's get into the ideas of your program and the Dignity Act 2025, because I think if you had to put a key word to this, it would be compromise. Would that be fair?
No. What would be fair would be just to bring them out of the shadows, period.
Sure.
Let them stay. Let them pay for their crime. Let them stay here, work some more, pay taxes. Let them just stay, period. And don't give them any right to citizenship. Don't give them any amnesty. Don't give them any federal programs. Make them pay $7,000 in fine plus another 1% of their salaries, and let them stay for 7 years and then apply for another 7 years. And we're going to generate trillions of dollars for the economy, trillions of dollars in the next 10 years. That's what I'm looking at. Besides national security, we will know who our neighbor is. On top of that, the border is secured. Let's codify border security in this. The dignity law has the border security component. So it's Solomonic. It's in the middle. It's not perfect, but it's the best we've had in the last 40 years. It can definitely garnish bipartisan support. I have 15 Dems, 15 Republicans supporting the Dignity Act.
All right.
And it's a major problem in the country. It's a number one, and is going to send the largest minority in the country a very big message welcoming them to the GOP and telling them that they have the same values that are entrenched in the Republican Party, which are God-fearing, law-abiding, tax-paying, family-oriented, church-goers. Bring them into the fold.
So Representative Maria Elvira Salazar, Republican, Florida 27th District, about her Dignity Act of 2025, which you can, if you want to look up the actual legislation, it is H.R. 4393. And, of course, her book, Dignity, Not Citizenship, The Truth About Immigration No One Is Telling You. You're listening to Issues and Ideas. E-Verify. Talk about how that can be utilized. Because
E-Verify, mandatory. Not voluntary like now.
Or, some states do, some states don't. It's got to, well, that's the other problem, too.
Come on.
Well, that's the other problem, too. We've been putting the E-Verify onus on the illegal immigrant, and short of a rare exception, businesses who do illegal hiring, they've gotten away without any kind of penalties.
Of course, specifically the business owners.
Yeah,
it's been going on for years. This has been going on for years. Come on, it's like it's time to put some order into this.
So how do you sell the idea then? Because as you point out, and this is I think one of the key points. You write that border security isn't immigration. They have a connection, but one doesn't equal the other. You can, and we already are in the process of strongly addressing, obviously, border security, but that doesn't address immigration.
And that's correct. One thing is border security, another thing is immigration. Border security has been an issue that is part of immigration, but is not the same thing. It's not the same thing.
And it's also,
so that's why we fixed border security with an executive order. We need to codify it into law.
Right, because executive orders can be erased just as fast as they've been written.
Of course. And then the next guy who's sitting at the White House can say, well, I don't like this policy, so let me just open the borders, which is exactly what Biden did when Trump won left. And so people think, the border security, it is now. And then what about in 28? So let's put an end to the border issue and the caravans and all that BS. Let's just then seal the border forever, and let's deal with the people who are here who will not be deported because we don't have enough hands, enough agents. And let's give the mandate to ICE to do what they do best, which is to catch the bad guys and concentrate on the bad guys, whether they are illegals or legals. It doesn't matter. Get them out. But leave the people who are on the fields and construction, hospitality, dairy, slaughterhouses, greenhouses, carnivals, healthcare, all those people who are definitely contributing to the economy. Leave them alone. Give them dignity, no citizenship, no amnesty. Let them pay for their crimes. Post a big fine, big taxes, and let them stay. So everyone wins.
Well, it's just balancing the scale where a legal immigrant was avoiding certain responsibilities. You have a plan to help them equate everything and put everything back into some sort of balance. And we have to end the segment here, but this would only apply if you've been here before 2021. So what Representative Salazar is doing is she's creating a path to bring the problem to a slowing down, at least initially, if not a complete end, eventually through mandatory E-Verify and limiting the turning down the neon lights on the welcome mats that others before the current administration have ignited, I guess we'd say, and to bring just sensible compromise into the discussion as opposed to political headbutting, which has just prolonged and allowed the problem to fester and grow to the degree it has, as we see in the here and now. She writes about this in great detail and puts the human side into it, not just the political side, and Dignity, Not Citizenship. And look up the Dignity Act of 2025. It's H.R. 4393. Representative Maria Elvira Salazar, you have brought common sense to what has been a historically difficult, challenging issue. And I hope you're going to wake a lot more than the 30 you have up to realize that there is a solution.
Thank you.
And
of course there is. And of course there is. It's just political willingness. It's just showing political willingness. Believe you me, it's frustrating sometimes because I see the solution so easily accessible, and it's not perfect, but it's very Solomonic, and it's really very hard at this hour. But I do have hope that the GOP will wake up before the midterm elections.
Again, Dignity, Not Citizenship. Get the book because it will educate you.
And I have a book, on Amazon. You can go to Amazon, Dignity, Not Citizenship, the truth about immigration that no one is telling you.
Thank you, Representative, for being here.
My pleasure to you, and thank you for the opportunity. Big hugs. Bye-bye.
Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the word hoax as an act intended to trick or dupe. Recently, Donald Trump called the affordability issue regarding food a quote-unquote hoax. Now, how can you tell, since Trump also ordered his administration to end all federal reports and studies on hunger in America? However, the truth can still be learned thanks to a recent effort by Hunger Free America. They've just released the report, Affordability Crisis plus Middle Class Decline Fuels Soaring U.S. Hunger. Here to present some of the report's findings is State Policy Director with Hunger Free America, Kim Moscaritolo. How are you today, Kim?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for this work that you're doing, and you can get the report as well at hungerfreeamerica.org, and I'd advise you to do it because the level of the problem you think there is versus the level of the problem that there actually is, I think you're probably going to find it a much more larger problem than you might have been assuming. And I do want to add this into the conversation before I forget, Kim. This was according to Politico. The requirement to reapply for already being received SNAP benefits, that's something the head of the USDA had called for a few weeks ago. That is now, at least at this point in time, not going to be required. Keep a caveat out there, though, because policies like this are literally and figuratively at the whim of the moment with this White House, but at least in the current state, that's a little bit of good news, Kim, isn't it?
It is. I mean, to be clear, SNAP recipients are all required to periodically recertify to ensure that they still are eligible for the program. So it was really unclear what this reapplication was going to entail, since we already essentially require that of participants. But it was adding a lot of confusion and a lot of stress. So we're glad to hear that, at least for the time being, there doesn't seem to be a change in that particular recertification process.
Poll conducted for The Guardian found that monthly cost for food for Americans had risen depending on family size and income bracket, whatever the case may be, but by and large between $100 and $749 in the 9 months after Donald Trump took office, promising to on day one reduce the cost of food and the grocery store. The problem is a lot bigger than a lot of people are thinking. I mean, it's great to be able to go to a food bank event, or I know here in Northwest New Jersey they do a Stuff the Bus 3-day event to help the Northwest New Jersey County Food Pantry. But it's a sizable problem. What were some of the things you were looking for with these reports?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me start by saying that we issue a national hunger survey report every year. And normally we base that report on data directly from USDA, which, would always run this sort of very comprehensive, very data-driven study of food insecurity in the United States. This year, for the first time in decades, the USDA announced that it would no longer be conducting those really data-driven surveys. And it was a real shock to a lot of people in the anti-hunger community, because we really rely on those numbers to understand the state of hunger and food insecurity in the United States. We had a feeling we may not be getting great data from USDA, so this year, Hunger Free America, we took it upon ourselves to do our own surveys. And so we did a national survey of over 1,700 U.S. families with an annual income of below $100,000. And what we found, I don't think would shock anybody, but the numbers are pretty clear. 81% of the people who were surveyed said that the prices that they paid for food and other basic living costs had increased, either greatly or somewhat, in the last year. 55% said it was harder to afford the amount and quality of food that their household needed. And probably one of the most devastating numbers that we found was that in families with children, 27% said they were forced to buy food that was less nutritious for their children, and 22% said they had to reduce portion sizes for their children. And that's just a devastating number in a country as rich as the United States. to think that there are families with children potentially going to sleep hungry without enough food. So, on the one hand, we certainly weren't surprised by these numbers, but it's still really heartbreaking to hear them and to understand what families are going through in this country.
Or if the families are buying food, it's lower quality food. I've seen it in the stores where they're reaching for those $1.79 TV dinners, or they're doing the food shopping at it's not really a dollar store anymore, but it's still called the dollar store, and you get food for $1.50. But again, quality, it's not there, and health-wise, it's not exactly the best for the kids either.
It's not, and we've said for a long time, we want people to eat nutritious food, but we believe that the way we do that is by incentivizing healthy buying. So that means obviously making it more available, making it more affordable. There are cities like New York City, for example, has a program that offers extra funds for people to buy fruits and vegetables at their local farmers markets. So we believe that, we want people to eat healthy, and the way we do that is by making that healthy food as available to people as possible.
Looking at some of the breakdowns of the studies in the report too, this goes across as many demographics as you want to think of. I mean, let's look at party affiliation. Republicans, Democrats, Independents all say by a vast majority in the 80-plus percentile that prices have increased.
Absolutely, yes. What we found was that across all of the political spectrum, people were feeling the pinch. I mean, it's not really something that can be denied. Food prices, for a variety of reasons, have gone up, and people are having a harder time affording that food. So whether you are a Democrat, Republican, unaffiliated with a political party, across the spectrum, people are feeling the pinch when they go to the grocery store. So this is absolutely a nationwide problem.
Talking with Kim Moscaritolo, who is State Policy Director with Hunger Free America, about the report Affordability Crisis, plus middle-class decline fuel soaring U.S. hunger, which you can read for yourself as well at hungerfreeamerica.org. And you are listening to Issues and Ideas. People say that the SNAP program, that fills the void, but does it really, Kim? Does SNAP supply a significant answer to the food insecurity that a growing number of families are feeling?
So we at Hunger Free America strongly believe that at the end of the day, the way we solve hunger in America, the way we solve hunger in America is through policy decisions. That means ensuring that everyone earns a living wage, ensuring that people have access to affordable health care, affordable child care, affordable transportation. Because when folks don't have those things, the first thing they tend to do is cut their food budget. So without question, that is the true answer to hunger in America. That being said, when people don't make enough money for whatever reason, we strongly believe that we need a robust social safety net, and that includes programs like SNAP. SNAP provides more than 40 million Americans with a lifeline, a way to make sure that they and their families can be fed when times are tough. We love the work that the food charities and the food banks do, but at the end of the day, the money that is put out through SNAP is about 17 times the amount of food that is provided by all of the food charities combined. So when the government cuts that funding, there is just no way for any of these food charities and nonprofits to fill the gap. So we absolutely need SNAP in this country to fill the gap so that people who either fall on hard times or just don't make enough money to pay all of their bills and buy all the groceries they need are still able to get by and are still able to go to bed with some food in their stomachs.
But is it also a mistake, though, for someone to believe, that person's on SNAP, they're covered. They got everything they need through the SNAP program. When you look at the statistics, it varies obviously from state to state, but pulled up the numbers here for New Jersey since that's where we are right now. The average SNAP benefit per person is $194.63. I mean, it's a nice addition. It's a good cushion, but it's not the end-all, be-all answer.
No, that's correct. I mean, it's right there in the name. It's the supplemental nutrition assistance program. So it is meant to be supplemental. And the problem is that in so many instances, people's wages are so low, they're not working enough hours, prices have increased so much. I mean, if you look at the numbers just in the New York metropolitan area, food prices have increased significantly over the past 5 years. And there's a number of reasons for that, but at the end of the day, people go to the grocery store and their bills are significantly higher. And unfortunately, one of the things that H.R. 1, which is the bill that was passed in Congress, did was it essentially removed USDA's ability to increase SNAP allotments in response to increases in food prices. That was something that had been put in the Biden administration that was essentially repealed. And so now, even when food prices go up dramatically, USDA does not have the same ability to increase allotments to make up for that difference. So we're seeing even greater gaps between what people have in their wallets and the cost of food in the grocery store.
Much like with Social Security, they have a cost of living allowance. The same should apply to a program as vital as SNAP, to be sure. And
sure.
The report mentions as well, we have to move along to, just to wrap up here, but a point I've always had a problem with, the lack of full enthusiastic participation by schools in the school meal programs, breakfast as well as lunch and after school as well. And some of the school districts, they have miserable rates of participation, and a higher participation rate now more than ever is important and would certainly play a huge role in alleviating the problem. You mentioned Congress. You do have some congressional support for this issue too, don't you?
Yeah, there is. And it really varies state by state. Even though there is money that is provided by the federal government, at the end of the day, the states are the ones who administer these programs, and as well as the school districts. And so, we are seeing states like, for example, just this past year, New York finally, made it the law that every school would have universal school breakfasts and school lunches, and that's great. And there are other states that have done that as well. But there are some that, still really lag. And it's not just about whether or not it's available. It's about making it easy for people to participate. So, for example, with school breakfast, we're really supportive of the idea of either a grab-and-go breakfast or a breakfast in first period class. Because when you're asking families to drop off their children even earlier in the day to get breakfast right away, you're cutting off participation for people who can't get to school early for whatever reason. So the idea with these programs is not just that they are there, but that they are easily accessible by the people who need them, and that we create an environment where people feel comfortable accessing these programs, where nobody feels any kind of stigma, and where it's available to everybody so that nobody feels like they have some sort of stigma if they are the ones accessing the school lunch or the school breakfast. So, we've certainly come a long way on this, but there's still so much work to do to make sure that every single child has access to free school meals for both breakfast and lunch.
The report again is affordability crisis plus middle class decline, fuel soaring U.S. hunger. If you think this issue is a hoax, read this report and you'll find out where the true hoaxing lies, and that's with the people claiming this issue is a hoax. You can find the report, more information, and more ways to get involved with Hunger Free America, their website, hungerfreeamerica.org. She is our state policy director for Hunger Free America, Kim Moscaritolo. Kim, thanks for the information, the stats, and the truth about a very important issue which can't be allowed to get any more serious than it already is. The reversal is long overdue, and the work of Hunger Free America will bring that reversal around, I hope, much sooner versus later. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it happened again. We had a church claim that they knew the day that the rapture would happen. In case you were wondering, they said the rapture was going to happen September 23rd and 24th. Yeah, I wondered why 2 days, too. I mean, I know there's going to be a lot of people, but we're told this in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52, in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye at the last trumpet, for the trumpet will sound, and the dead will be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. Now, don't get upset. The rapture didn't happen. You didn't get left behind. This was just one of the many times false teachers have lied to people, causing them to sell everything they have just to be humiliated, which I never understood why these people sell everything they own. It's not like you're going to take the money with you. This time the false rapture claim was done by a fringe so-called church. Maybe the best known recent example of this false claim, remember televangelist Harold Camping? Claimed he knew the day of the rapture, and that was proven wrong. He said, well, I've recalculated, and obviously he was wrong second time, too. All of these perpetrators are blind to, I think, one of the most clear lessons by Jesus regarding the rapture. He even repeats it and expands on it. This is all in Matthew chapter 24. Jesus reveals this in verse 36. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. And we have this in verse 42. Watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. And Jesus adds this in verse 44, therefore you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. This teaching by Jesus is retold throughout the New Testament. Let's go to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 2. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. You also read this in 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 10. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. These false teachers really belong in the same category as witches, psychics, fortune tellers, mediums. They take advantage of people's faith and hopes to gain for themselves. This is what God says about all of these frauds in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 6. And the person who turns to mediums and familiar spirits to prostitute himself with them, I will set my face against that person and cut him off from his people. Additionally, 1 John chapter 4, verse 1, we read this, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. All throughout the Bible, we're warned about false prophets and teachers, along with how their rise will be a sign that the end times are approaching. We learn this in Matthew chapter 24, verse 24. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. And we're given an even stronger warning in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 13 through 15. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also transform themselves into ministers of righteousness, whose end will be according to their works. It's only God who knows what's to come and when. It's his word which prepares us for what's to come. It's why his Son was sent to teach and die for our sins. So why do you need to have faith in anyone else?
Thank you for listening today to this best of edition of Issues and Ideas with Chris DeBello. Chris will be back next week with more great conversations and information. Visit our website at issuesandideasradio.com.